The cafeteria fell dead silent the moment Jake Ridley grabbed the new girl's skirt and yanked hard. Laughter turned to shock as Emma Carter, the quiet transfer student with scars on her wrists and fire in her eyes, moved faster than anyone expected. A sharp crack. A scream. Then another. By the time the teachers came running, 2 boys were on the ground clutching broken arms, and Emma stood over them, her voice colder than steel. Asterisk, touch me again, and I'll break more than just your bones. But this was only the beginning, because Emma wasn't just some girl who knew how to fight. She had a past, one that was about to drag the entire school into a storm of secrets, betrayals, and a revenge plot years in the making. And when the truth finally explodes, something will happen next in the story that you would have never imagined. From which country are you enjoying this story? Make sure to tell us in the comments, and subscribe now because this is one tale you won't see coming. The cafeteria buzzed with the usual noise of clattering trays and overlapping voices, a chaotic symphony of teenage life. Emma Carter sat alone at a corner table, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her eyes fixed on the untouched food before her. The skirt of her uniform, slightly too long, brushed against the floor as she shifted in her seat. She had learned long ago that drawing attention only led to trouble, so she made herself as small and unnoticeable as possible. It didn't work. A crumpled ball of paper hit her shoulder, bouncing off and landing on her tray. She didn't flinch. Another followed, then another, each one accompanied by muffled laughter from the table across the room. Emma kept her gaze down, her fingers tightening around the edge of her skirt. Then came the tug. A sharp pull at the fabric, yanking hard enough that she nearly lost her balance. The laughter erupted louder this time, a chorus of jeers and whistles. Jake Ridley stood over her, his fingers still gripping the hem of her skirt, his mouth twisted into a smirk. His friends crowded behind him, their faces alight with amusement. Emma didn't move at first. She simply stared at his hand, at the way his knuckles whitened as he tugged again, testing her. The room seemed to narrow, the noise fading into a dull hum. Then she acted. Her hand shot out, fingers locking around Jake's wrist with a grip that made his eyes widen. Before he could react, she twisted, hard. The crack was audible, a sharp snap that cut through the laughter like a knife. Jake's scream followed, high and panicked, his face contorting in pain as he staggered back, clutching his arm. His friend, a broad-shouldered boy with a sneer already forming on his lips, lunged at her. Emma didn't hesitate. She sidestepped, grabbed his outstretched arm, and wrenched it back with the same brutal efficiency. Another crack. Another scream. The cafeteria fell silent. Every pair of eyes locked onto her, wide with shock. Emma released the second boy, letting him stumble back into the crowd, his face pale with pain. She straightened her skirt, smoothed the fabric with deliberate calm, then lifted her gaze to meet Jake's. "Touch me again," she said, her voice quiet but clear, "and I'll break more than just your arms." For a moment, no one moved. Then, like a spell breaking, the whispers started. They spread like wildfire, hissing through the room as Emma picked up her tray and walked away, her steps steady despite the way her hands trembled slightly at her sides. She had known this would happen. New school, new faces, same story. She was the quiet one, the easy target. But they didn't know. They didn't know about the hours she had spent learning how to defend herself, the bruises she had earned in back alleys and makeshift gyms. They didn't know about the nights she had spent curled up in foster homes, listening to the sounds of shouting and slamming doors, promising herself she would never be helpless again. And they didn't know about the last school, the last town, the last time she had been forced to fight back. Emma pushed through the cafeteria doors, the weight of their stares burning into her back. This wasn't over. She knew that. Jake wasn't the type to let something like this slide. He would come for her again, and next time, he wouldn't be alone. But that was fine. She was ready. The hallway outside was empty, the distant sound of classrooms muffled behind closed doors. Emma took a deep breath, forcing her shoulders to relax. She had survived worse. She would survive this. Then a hand grabbed her arm. Emma tensed, her body coiling instinctively, but the grip wasn't aggressive. She turned to see a girl with wide, frightened eyes, her fingers trembling where they clutched at Emma's sleeve. "You don't know what you've done," the girl whispered, her voice shaking. "Jake, he's not just some guy. His dad owns half this town. People don't cross him. Ever." Emma studied her for a moment, taking in the fear etched into every line of her face. Then she gently pried the girl's fingers from her arm. "Then I guess they've never met someone like me," she said. The girl stared at her, disbelief warring with something like hope in her expression. Emma didn't wait for a response. She turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing in the empty hall. Somewhere behind her, the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. The beginning of something else. The whispers followed Emma like shadows as she moved through the crowded hallway. Students pressed themselves against lockers as she passed, their conversations dying mid-sentence. The story had already mutated. Some said she'd broken both of Jake's arms. Others claimed she'd sent 3 guys to the hospital. The truth didn't matter. The legend was already being written. Emma kept her eyes forward, her backpack straps digging into her shoulders. She could feel the stares like physical touches, some fearful, some curious, a few burning with something like admiration. None of them knew. None of them understood what it meant to be backed into a corner with no way out but through. The principal's office loomed ahead, its doors slightly ajar. Emma didn't need to be summoned to know she'd end up there. Schools always protected their golden boys, their star athletes with college prospects. The new girl with the 2 quiet eyes and the 2 fast hands? She was disposable. She paused outside the door, hearing the raised voices within. Absolutely unacceptable. A man's voice, sharp with money and privilege. Jake's father. "That little bitch put my son in the hospital." Emma's fingers twitched at her sides. She'd known this would come. The rich always played by different rules. She took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The room fell silent. Principal Higgins sat behind his desk, his face drawn. A well-dressed man with Jake's blonde hair and cold eyes stood over him, his face flushed with anger. And in the corner, Jake slumped in a chair, his right wrist wrapped in a pristine white cast. All eyes turned to Emma. "There she is," Mr. Ridley spat. "The little criminal." Emma met his gaze without flinching. "He started it." "That's not what the witnesses say," Principal Higgins interjected, shuffling papers on his desk. "Multiple students reported you attacked Jake unprovoked." Emma's lips curled into a humorless smile. "Of course they did." She turned to Jake. "Tell them the truth." Jake wouldn't meet her eyes. His free hand clenched in his lap. "She's crazy," he muttered. "Just snapped for no reason." Emma felt something cold settle in her chest. This was how it always went. The lies. The cover-ups. The powerful protecting their own. Mr. Ridley took a step forward, his expensive cologne washing over her. "I want her expelled. Today. And I'll be pressing charges." Principal Higgins sighed. "Emma, do you have anything to say?" She looked at each of them in turn. The angry father, the cowardly principal, the golden boy who couldn't even look at her. They were all the same. Every school. Every town. Different faces, same story. "My mother died 8 months ago," Emma said, her voice steady. "Cancer. The medical bills took everything. I've been through 3 foster homes since then. This is my 4th school in a year." She turned to Jake. "You thought I was an easy target. Just another nobody you could push around." Her lips twisted. "You were wrong." The room was silent. Even Mr. Ridley seemed momentarily thrown. Then his face hardened again. "None of that excuses what you did." Emma reached into her pocket. The principal tensed, but she only pulled out a cheap flip phone. "I recorded it," she said, pressing play. The audio was clear, the laughter, the taunts, the sound of fabric tearing as Jake yanked her skirt. Then the gasps as she fought back. Principal Higgins paled. Mr. Ridley's face darkened like a storm cloud. Emma slipped the phone back in her pocket. "I learned the hard way, people like you always lie. So I come prepared now." The silence stretched. Outside, the bell rang for next period. Principal Higgins cleared his throat. "Mr. Ridley, perhaps we should discuss this privately." Emma didn't wait to be dismissed. She turned and walked out, the weight of their stares following her. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. But for the first time in months, she didn't feel quite so alone. The hallway was empty now, classes having started. Emma took a deep breath and adjusted her backpack. She knew what came next. The retaliation. The whispers. The isolation. But she also knew something they didn't. She wasn't the prey anymore. She was the storm. Emma's footsteps echoed through the empty hallway as she walked toward her next class. The usual chatter that filled the corridors between periods was absent. Students ducked into classrooms quickly, their voices hushed. She could feel their eyes on her through the narrow windows of the doors she passed, their whispers slithering out into the hall like smoke. Did you hear what she did to Jake? They're saying she broke his wrist like it was a twig. Asterisk, she's crazy. Like, actually dangerous. Asterisk. Emma kept her expression blank, her hands loose at her sides. She had expected this. It was always the same. First came the fear, then the rumors, then the retaliation. The only difference this time was the scale. At her last school, it had been a few kids, a handful of names spat at her in the hallways. Here, it felt like the entire building was holding its breath, waiting to see what she would do next. And what Jake would do in return. She pushed open the door to her history class. The room, which was usually a dull murmur of side conversations, fell silent the moment she stepped inside. 20 pairs of eyes locked onto her, some wide with curiosity, others narrowed in distrust. The teacher, Mr. Dawson, paused mid-sentence, his mouth slightly open. Emma ignored them all. She walked to her usual seat in the back, dropped her bag onto the floor, and sat down. For a moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the whispers started up again. Mr. Dawson cleared his throat. All right, everyone, eyes up front. We're picking up where we left off yesterday. But no one was listening. The girl who usually sat beside Emma, a quiet redhead named Leah, had shifted her desk a few inches farther away. The boy in front of her kept glancing back, his knee bouncing nervously. Emma pulled out her notebook and stared at the blank page. She had known this would happen. She had known the moment she twisted Jake's wrist that she was making a choice, one that would ripple through the rest of her time here. But what else was she supposed to do? Let him humiliate her? Let him and his friends think they could push her around forever? She had spent too many years being quiet. Too many years letting things happen to her. Never again. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of hushed voices and averted gazes. By lunchtime, the story had grown. Some said she'd put 2 guys in the hospital, others claimed she'd fought off 5 at once. A few kids eyed her with something like awe, but most just looked wary. Emma didn't care. She sat alone at her usual table, picking at her food, her back to the wall so she could see the entire cafeteria. She wasn't stupid. Jake wasn't the type to let this go. And sure enough, halfway through the period, the doors swung open. Jake walked in, his wrist wrapped in a cast, his face a mask of barely contained fury. Behind him trailed his usual group, Ryan, Tyler, and Mark. But there were others now, too. Older guys. Football players, from the looks of them. Emma didn't move. She kept eating, her fingers loose around her fork, her body relaxed. But her eyes tracked them as they crossed the room, weaving between tables, heading straight for her. The cafeteria fell silent. Jake stopped in front of her table, his good hand clenched into a fist. For a long moment, he just stared at her, his chest rising and falling with quick, angry breaths. Emma looked up at him. You want to sit down? A muscle in his jaw twitched. You're dead, he hissed. She tilted her head. You sure about that? Something flickered in his eyes, doubt just for a second. Then his face hardened again. This isn't over. Emma smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. No, she agreed. It's not. Jake's friends shifted behind him, uneasy. One of the football players, a senior with a buzz cut and a scar over his eyebrow, eyed her with something like respect. Jake opened his mouth to say something else, but before he could, a voice cut through the silence. That's enough. Everyone turned. Principal Higgins stood in the doorway, his arms crossed, his expression stern. My office. Now. Jake's face darkened. She started it? I don't care, Higgins snapped. Move. For a second, it looked like Jake might argue. Then, with one last glare at Emma, he turned and stalked out of the cafeteria, his friends trailing behind him. The room stayed silent until the doors swung shut behind them. Then, all at once, the noise returned, louder now, buzzing with excitement. Emma exhaled slowly and went back to her food. This wasn't over. Not even close. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Emma walked the long path home, her breath fogging in the crisp autumn air. The school day had ended with an unnatural quiet, like the entire building was holding its breath. She kept her hands buried deep in her jacket pockets, fingers brushing against the familiar shape of her phone, her only insurance policy in this town. A crunch of gravel behind her made her shoulders tense. Emma didn't turn around, didn't speed up. She simply adjusted her grip on the keys between her fingers, the metal teeth protruding like claws from her fist. "Emma, wait up." The voice was female, slightly breathless. Emma slowed but didn't stop until Sarah from the cafeteria caught up, her cheeks flushed pink from running. "You shouldn't walk home alone," Sarah panted, clutching her books to her chest. "Not after today." Emma studied the other girl's face, searching for deception. "Why do you care?" Sarah's eyes darted to the empty road behind them. "Because I know what Jake's like when he's humiliated." And that stunt in the cafeteria? That was nuclear-level embarrassment. They walked in silence past rows of identical suburban houses. The neighborhood was eerily quiet, the only sound the occasional rustle of leaves skittering across pavement. Emma noticed Sarah glancing nervously at every shadow. "You're scared of him," Emma observed. Sarah's grip tightened on her books. "You weren't here last year when Jake got cut from varsity baseball. He made sure the guy who took his spot transferred schools by Thanksgiving." She lowered her voice. "His dad owns half the school board. Nothing sticks to Jake. Ever." Emma kicked a pebble, watching it skip across the asphalt. "Things stick now." "That's what I'm afraid of," Sarah whispered. A black SUV rolled past them slowly, its tinted windows obscuring the occupants. Emma felt the weight of unseen eyes tracking their progress. The vehicle turned the corner and disappeared. Sarah visibly relaxed. "Look, just be careful, okay? Jake's not used to losing. And when he can't get to someone directly..." Emma stopped walking. "He goes after people close to them." Sarah nodded miserably. "His last girlfriend? She broke up with him sophomore year. Next day, her little brother got jumped after practice. 2 broken ribs." The pieces clicked into place. "That's why you warned me," Emma said. "You're not just scared for me. You're scared for yourself." Sarah's silence was answer enough. They reached a fork in the road where their paths diverged. Emma studied the fading sunlight painting the clouds blood orange. "You should go home, Sarah. And stay there." "But Dash, I don't have anyone for Jake to hurt," Emma said flatly. "That's the one advantage of having no one left." Sarah opened her mouth to respond when a chorus of car doors slamming echoed from the next street over. The sound was followed by raucous laughter and the unmistakable timbre of Jake's voice. Emma's body went still, every sense sharpening. "Go. Now." Sarah hesitated only a second before darting down a side street, her footsteps fading into the twilight. Emma turned toward the sounds, rolling her shoulders loose. She counted at least 4 distinct voices, maybe more. The metallic taste of adrenaline flooded her mouth as she stepped into the shadow of a large oak tree, her fingers finding the familiar grip of the tactical pen in her pocket. The voices grew louder, accompanied by the crunch of multiple feet on gravel. Emma could make out Jake's distinct whine now. "Said she walks this way every day. We'll wait here and dash." "Looking for me?" Emma stepped into the open, her posture relaxed but ready. The group of boys froze mid-stride. Jake stood at the center, flanked by his usual cronies plus 3 older guys she didn't recognize, all wearing varsity jackets. Behind them, the black SUV idled at the curb, its headlights off. Jake's cast gleamed white in the fading light as he stepped forward. "You've got a big mouth for someone who's about to dash." "Save it," Emma interrupted. She tilted her head toward the older boys. "You needed to bring your big brothers to fight a girl? That's even sadder than the cafeteria." One of the varsity guys cracked his knuckles. Jake said you were tough. Don't look so tough to me. Emma smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. First rule of fighting, never listen to the guy who got his ass kicked. The atmosphere crackled with tension. A streetlight flickered on overhead, casting long shadows across the pavement. Emma noted their positions, 3 in front, 2 hanging back near the car, Jake slightly to the left. She calculated angles, escape routes, potential weapons within reach. Jake opened his mouth to speak when a new voice cut through the tension. Evening, gentlemen. All heads turned toward the source. A tall figure leaned against a lamppost 20 feet away, his face obscured by shadows. The glow of a cigarette flared as he took a drag. Mind if I cut in? Emma's breath caught. She knew that voice. The varsity guys shifted uneasily. This doesn't concern you, old man, one of them sneered. The cigarette arced through the air, landing in a shower of sparks. The man stepped into the light, revealing a face that made 2 of Jake's crew actually take a step back. Detective Mark Reynolds hadn't aged well since Emma last saw him. The scars from the fire were more pronounced now, twisting down the left side of his neck. But his eyes were the same, sharp, calculating, and currently fixed on Jake with unsettling intensity. I think it does concern me, Reynolds said mildly. He flashed a badge that hadn't been valid in over a year. Now how about you kids run along before I start asking questions about that missing OxyContin from the pharmacy last month? Jake's face went pale. You can't prove dash. I don't need to. Reynolds' smile didn't reach his eyes. Go home, Jacob. Daddy's waiting. The group dissolved with muttered curses, piling into the SUV. Jake shot Emma a look of pure venom before slamming the door. Tires squealed as they peeled away. Silence settled over the empty street. Emma didn't relax. You've been following me. Reynolds lit another cigarette. You're hard to find, kid. 3 foster homes in 8 months? You're like a ghost. I like it that way. Yeah, well. He exhaled a plume of smoke. Turns out ghosts make great witnesses. Emma went very still. I testified. 2 years ago. It's done. Reynolds studied the glowing tip of his cigarette. Vincent Costa made bail last week. The words hit like a physical blow. Emma's vision tunneled for a second, the street tilting beneath her feet. She forced air into her lungs. You're lying. Wish I was. Reynolds flicked ash onto the pavement. His lawyers found some loophole in the RICO charges. He's out and he's pissed. Emma's hand found the scar on her ribs almost unconsciously. The one from where the knife had slipped past her guard. So what? You're here to protect me now? Little late for that. Reynolds' smile was grim. I'm here to warn you. Costa's got long arms and a longer memory. And you, kid, are the one who got away. A cold wind rattled the tree branches overhead. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Emma studied the detective's face, looking for the lie. She found only exhaustion. What do you want from me? She asked quietly. Reynolds crushed his cigarette underfoot. Stay alive. And if you see anything unusual, you call me. He pressed a business card into her hand. This time, we do it by the book. Emma stared at the card, then at the fading taillights of Jake's SUV. A hysterical laugh bubbled in her throat. You realize I just started a war with the richest kid in school, right? Reynolds shrugged. Compared to Vincent Costa? This is child's play. He turned to leave, then paused. Watch your back, kid. Both of them. Emma stood alone on the darkened street long after Reynolds disappeared, the business card crumpling in her fist. The pieces were moving now, the game board tilting beneath her feet. Jake Ridley thought he was her biggest problem. He had no idea what was coming for both of them. The morning fog clung to the school grounds like a shroud as Emma approached the building, her footsteps silent on the damp pavement. The detective's warning had kept her awake most of the night, her mind racing through scenarios, escape routes, contingency plans. She'd slept with her back against the door of her latest foster home, a kitchen knife under her pillow. Just like old times. The school doors loomed before her, their glass panels reflecting the gray dawn. Emma paused, watching the distorted reflection of students shuffling past behind her. Everything looked normal. That was the problem. She pushed through the doors. The hallway was quieter than usual. Conversations stopped as she passed. Eyes followed her with a new intensity, not just fear or curiosity now, but something darker. Something hungry. Emma kept her pace even, her breathing steady. Her backpack hung from one shoulder, its weight carefully balanced for quick movement. Beneath her sleeves, the familiar ridges of her forearm braces pressed against her skin. She'd worn them every day since the fire, when the doctors said her bones needed support. They never asked why she never took them off. The first note fluttered from her locker as she turned the combination. "We know who you are." Emma's fingers didn't tremble as she plucked the folded paper from the floor. The handwriting was neat, almost feminine. She unfolded it carefully, nostrils flaring at the faint chemical scent. A single sentence, "Welcome back, little bird." The blood drained from her face. That name. Only one person had ever called her that. Vincent's favorite pet name for his snitches, his runners, his little birds who sang when he squeezed them tight enough. Emma crushed the paper in her fist. Her eyes scanned the hallway, searching for anything out of place. A lingering gaze, a smirk, someone watching too closely. But the morning routine continued undisturbed, students rushing to beat the bell, teachers sipping coffee from travel mugs. She turned back to her locker and froze. The inside had been ransacked. Her spare hoodie lay in a heap on the bottom, its pockets turned inside out. The small mirror she kept taped to the door was cracked diagonally. And in the center, propped against her chemistry textbook, sat a familiar object that made her stomach drop. A chess piece. The Black Queen. Emma's breath came too fast. Her fingers itched to grab it, to hurl it across the hallway, but she forced herself to stay still. This wasn't just a threat. It was a message. Vincent always opened with the Queen's Gambit. The bell rang, jolting her from her thoughts. Emma carefully lifted the chess piece with 2 fingers, feeling along its base. There, the slightest irregularity. She twisted, and the top came away in her hand, revealing a rolled slip of paper inside. Asterisk lunchtime. The bleachers. Come alone or the redhead pays, asterisk. Sarah. They'd targeted Sarah. Emma's vision tunneled. She slammed the locker shut hard enough to make the neighboring students jump. The chess piece dug into her palm as she stormed down the hallway, her mind racing. This wasn't Jake's style. Too subtle, too precise. Someone else was pulling strings now. The morning passed in a blur. Emma sat through classes without hearing a word, her leg bouncing under the desk, her fingers tracing the outline of the chess piece in her pocket. At one point, a teacher called on her, but the words sounded muffled, like she was underwater. "Emma? Are you paying attention?" She blinked. The entire class was staring. "Yes." The teacher frowned. "Then what did I just say?" "That sometimes the most dangerous predators hide in plain sight." Emma's voice was flat. "Like black widows. Or brown recluses." A nervous titter ran through the room. The teacher's mouth tightened, but he just nodded and turned back to the board. Emma exhaled slowly. She hadn't actually heard the lesson, just guessed based on the spider diagram on the whiteboard. Lucky break. When the lunch bell finally rang, Emma was the first out the door. She moved quickly but not hurriedly, scanning the crowds without seeming to. No obvious tails. No unfamiliar faces. Just the usual sea of backpacks and chatter. The bleachers stood empty when she arrived, their metal frames glinting dully in the midday sun. Emma climbed to the top row, her hands brushing against the cold steel. From here, she could see the entire field, the parking lot, 3 of the school's exits. No blind spots. She waited. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The chess piece grew warm in her palm. Just as she started to think it might be a bluff, a figure emerged from the tree line beyond the football field. Wearing a hoodie despite the mild weather. He moved with purpose, cutting across the grass toward her. Emma's muscles coiled, ready to spring. Her fingers found the tactical pen in her pocket. The figure reached the base of the bleachers and paused. Then, with deliberate slowness, he pushed back his hood. Emma's breath caught. Not Vincent. Magic. Daniel Carter. Her brother. "Hey, little bird," he said, his voice rougher than she remembered. "Long time no see." Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. Danny looked older than his 23 years, his face leaner, harder. A fresh scar cut across his eyebrow, and his knuckles were scabbed over. But his eyes were the same warm brown that used to comfort her during thunderstorms when they were kids. Before everything went wrong. "You're supposed to be in witness protection," Emma whispered. Danny's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, well, things change." He glanced around nervously. "We need to talk." "Somewhere not here." Emma didn't move. "How did you find me?" "Followed your trail of broken bones, apparently." He nodded toward the school. "Heard about your stunt with the rich kid. Still got a temper, huh?" "That's not an answer." Danny sighed. "Vincent's got people everywhere, even in Witsec. When I heard he was sniffing around again, I came looking for you." His voice dropped. "He knows you testified. Knows where you are now." The chess piece in Emma's hand suddenly felt heavy as a brick. "The note in my locker. That was you. Had to get your attention somehow." Danny's eyes darted toward the school. "We need to move. Now." Emma studied her brother's face, searching for tells. The way his left eye twitched when he lied. The way he used to scratch his elbow during uncomfortable silences. But this Danny was a stranger, his tells buried under layers of survival. "Why should I trust you?" she asked quietly. Danny's expression hardened. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a faded photograph. The two of them as kids, standing in front of Coney Island's Wonder Wheel, ice cream dripping down their hands. Their mother's handwriting on the back, "Danny and Summer, 09. "Because I'm all you've got left," he said. Emma stared at the photo, her throat tight. Then movement over Danny's shoulder caught her eye, a flash of red near the school entrance. Sarah, being led toward the parking lot by two figures in Letterman jackets. One of them was Jake. Danny followed her gaze. "That's our cue to leave." Emma was already moving, her feet pounding against the metal bleachers. "They have Sarah." "Who?" Danny grabbed her arm. "We can't dash." She wrenched free. "I'm not leaving her." Danny swore again but fell into step behind her as she sprinted across the field. Emma's mind raced ahead, calculating. The parking lot. 2 exits. Jake wouldn't try anything too public, which meant they were heading for the old maintenance shed behind the gym. Isolated. No cameras. They rounded the corner just in time to see Sarah being shoved through the shed door. Emma didn't hesitate. She yanked open the door and stepped inside, her eyes adjusting quickly to the dim light. The scene before her made her blood run cold. Sarah stood trembling against the far wall, her face streaked with tears. Jake loomed over her, his cast pressing into her shoulder. But it was the other figure that froze Emma in place. A man in his late 20s leaning against a workbench, idly flipping a butterfly knife. Marco Torres. Vincent's right hand. Well, Marco said, his teeth gleaming in the half-light. "If it isn't the Carter siblings. Reunion's coming early this year." Danny stepped in front of Emma, his hands raised. "Marco, listen dash." "Shut up, rat." Marco's smile vanished. "Vincent wants words with your sister. And you." He flipped the knife. "You're just a bonus." Emma's fingers found the chess piece in her pocket. She'd been played. The note, the locker, all of it, just bait to draw her out. And she'd walked right into it. Jake smirked at her over Marco's shoulder. "Told you it wasn't over." Emma met his gaze evenly. Then she smiled. "You're right. It's not." She threw the chess piece at the single bare light bulb overhead. The room plunged into darkness just as the first scream rang out. The darkness in the shed was absolute. Emma's other senses sharpened instantly. The scent of motor oil and damp wood, the rapid breathing of 5 people in close quarters, the creak of floorboards as someone shifted position. Somewhere to her left, Sarah whimpered. Then chaos erupted. A meaty thud, flesh hitting flesh. Danny's voice snarling, "Stay down." The metallic shick of Marco's butterfly knife opening. Jake's panicked shout, "What the hell?" Emma moved on instinct. 3 quick steps forward, her outstretched hand finding Sarah's trembling shoulder. She leaned close enough to smell the girl's strawberry shampoo. "Doors behind me." "Now." Sarah didn't hesitate. Her footsteps scrambled toward the rectangle of dim light as the door swung open and shut. The momentary illumination revealed the scene frozen like a gruesome tableau. Danny with his arm locked around Marco's throat, Jake half-crouched near the workbench, his cast raised defensively. Then darkness swallowed them again. Emma pivoted toward the sound of struggling bodies. Her elbow connected with something solid. A grunt of pain confirmed it was Marco. The knife clattered to the floor. "Bitch!" Marco wheezed. Danny's voice came from inches away. Window." She didn't question it. 3 long strides and her palms hit the grimy plexiglass. One sharp upward shove and the old window screeched open. Cool air rushed in. Behind her, the sounds of struggle intensified. A crash of tools falling from shelves, the splintering of wood. Then a wet crunch that could only mean someone's nose breaking. "Go!" Danny shouted. Emma hauled herself through the window, jagged metal catching her hoodie. She tumbled onto the asphalt outside just as the shed door burst open again. "The hell is happening?" Jake's voice, shrill with panic. Emma scrambled to her feet. The alley behind the gym was deserted except for Sarah, who stood frozen a few yards away, her hands pressed to her mouth. Before Emma could reach her, Danny came flying through the window, landing in a crouch. Blood streaked his temple. "Move!" They ran. The school's back fence loomed ahead. Danny reached it first, lacing his fingers together to make a step. Emma planted her foot in his hands and vaulted over, landing hard on the other side. Danny followed just as Marco's head appeared in the window they'd escaped through. "Run to the blue house on Elm." Danny gasped as they sprinted through backyards. Back doors unlocked. Emma risked a glance behind them. No pursuers yet, but Marco wouldn't stay down long. "Since when do you have a safe house?" "Since always." Danny's breathing was ragged. "You really thought I'd leave you unprotected?" They cut through a playground, its empty swings creaking in the wind. Elm Street was just ahead, a row of modest homes with postage stamp lawns. The blue one had peeling paint and a rusted mailbox. Danny didn't slow as they hit the porch. The back door swung open at his touch, just as promised. Inside smelled like stale coffee and gun oil. Emma's eyes adjusted to the dim interior. A kitchen with newspaper-covered windows, a table littered with radio equipment, a shotgun leaning against the fridge. Danny locked the door behind them and immediately began pulling down shades. "We've got maybe 10 minutes before Marco calls in reinforcements." Emma's hands shook as adrenaline crash hit. She gripped the edge of the table to steady herself. "Start talking. Now." Danny wiped blood from his brow. "After the trial, WITSEC placed me in Arizona. 3 months ago, I got tipped that Vincent had a mole in the program. Someone was feeding him info on protected witnesses. The pieces clicked. That's why you went rogue." "Had to." Danny rummaged through a drawer, producing a first aid kit. "I've been tracking Vincent's crew for weeks. When I heard they were sniffing around a school in this district, I knew it had to be you he was after." Emma's stomach turned. "Because I'm the one who put him away." "Not just that." Danny's gaze was grim. "Your family. And Vincent always settles debts with blood." A car door slammed outside. They both froze. Danny moved first, snatching the shotgun and motioning Emma toward a closet. "Hide." Emma didn't argue. The closet was cramped and smelled of mildew, but it gave her a narrow sight line through the slats. She watched Danny take position beside the door, weapon raised. 3 sharp knocks. The pause. Then 2 more. Danny lowered the gun slightly. "Sarah?" "Please," came the muffled reply. "They're right behind me." Emma burst from the closet. "Don't." Too late. Danny yanked open the door. Sarah stumbled in, her face streaked with tears. Right behind her was Jake, grinning triumphantly as he pressed a pistol to the back of her head. "Surprise," he drawled. Danny raised the shotgun, but Jake tooted. "Marco's got 3 guys covering us from outside. You shoot me, they turn this place into Swiss cheese." Emma's vision tunneled. She took a slow step forward. "Let her go, Jake. This is between you and me." Jake's smile widened. "Oh, it's way bigger than that now." He shoved Sarah forward and leveled the gun at Emma. Vincent Costa pays better than my dad's allowance. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Jake wasn't just some rich bully, he was Vincent's new recruit. Probably groomed for years, just like Danny had been before he turned state's evidence. Danny made a strangled noise. "You stupid kid. You have no idea what you're—" A gunshot cut him off. Danny crumpled, clutching his thigh. Sarah screamed. Jake's pistol smoked in his hand, his expression eerily calm. "Next one's between her eyes, Carter. Drop it." The shotgun clattered to the floor. Emma moved without thinking. Her forearm braces clicked as she flicked her wrists, twin blades springing from hidden compartments. A gift from Vincent himself, back when she was still his favorite little bird. Jake's eyes widened. "What the—" Emma was already spinning. Her left blade deflected Jake's panicked shot, sending the bullet into the ceiling. Her right came up under his chin, stopping just short of piercing skin. "Drop it," she whispered, "or I'll show you why Vincent called me his favorite." The gun hit the floor. Outside, engines roared. Tires screeched. Shouting erupted, then the unmistakable sound of fists meeting flesh. Jake paled. "That's not my guys." The front door burst open to reveal Detective Reynolds, his service weapon drawn. Two uniforms fanned out behind him, their guns trained on Jake. "Jacob Ridley," Reynolds said mildly. "Fancy meeting you here." His gaze flicked to Emma's blades. "You planning to shave him, or should we take it from here?" Emma retracted the blades with a snap. "He's all yours." Reynolds nodded to the uniforms, who hauled Jake upright. "Vincent's waiting for you at the station, kid. He's real eager to discuss how you botched his revenge plot." As they dragged Jake out, Reynolds turned to Danny, who was pressing a dish towel to his bleeding leg. "Medics are on the way. Try not to bleed on the nice linoleum." Sarah, who'd been silent through the whole exchange, suddenly found her voice. "What the hell is going on?" Reynolds sighed. "Kid, you don't want to know." He looked at Emma. "You okay?" Emma watched the blood seep through Danny's makeshift bandage. "No," she said quietly. "But I will be." The detective studied her for a long moment before nodding. "Yeah, I believe you." Outside, sirens wailed. Somewhere in the distance, a car backfired. And for the first time in years, Emma Carter breathed easy. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and stale sweat. Emma sat on an uncomfortable plastic chair, her fingers tracing the scratches on the table's surface. Across from her, Detective Reynolds flipped through a file, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on the walls. "They're charging Jake as an adult," Reynolds said without looking up. "Conspiracy, attempted kidnapping, accessory to attempted murder. His daddy's lawyers are already screaming about plea deals." Emma stared at her reflection in the one-way mirror. She looked older than 17. "And Vincent?" Reynolds snapped the file shut. "Looking at 20 more years, thanks to your brother's testimony and the recordings we got from Jake's phone." He leaned forward. "You did good, kid. It's over." Outside the interrogation room, the station hummed with activity. Phones rang. Officers joked by the coffee machine. Normal life continuing, as if the world hadn't shifted on its axis. Sarah sat in the waiting area, wrapped in a shock blanket, giving her statement to a female officer. She caught Emma's eye through the window and gave a small, shaky smile. Emma nodded back. The door opened, and Danny limped in, his thigh bandaged where the bullet had grazed him. He dropped into the chair next to Emma with a wince. "Well, that was fun." Reynolds stood. "I'll give you two a minute." When the door closed, silence settled between the siblings. The kind of silence that had weight, that carried all the unsaid things from 2 years of separation. Danny broke it first. "You kept the blades." Emma flexed her wrists, feeling the familiar weight of the hidden mechanisms. "Never know when you'll need them." A ghost of a smile crossed Danny's face. "Mom would kill you if she knew." "Yeah." Emma swallowed around the sudden lump in her throat. "She would." The truth settled between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Their mother was gone. Vincent was going away for good. And somehow, against all odds, they were still here. Danny cleared his throat. So, what now? Emma thought about it. About the foster homes and the schools and the endless running. About Jake's terrified face when they dragged him away. About Sarah's quiet courage. "I stay," she said finally. "No more running." Danny studied her face. "You sure?" "Yeah." Emma turned the word over in her mouth, testing its weight. It felt right. "I think I earned it." Outside, the first light of dawn painted the sky pink. The night shift officers clocked out, grumbling about overtime. A janitor pushed a mop down the hallway, whistling off-key. Danny pushed to his feet, offering his hand. "Come on, let's go home." Emma took it. Epilogue. 3 months later. The cafeteria was loud. Laughter, chatter, the clatter of trays. Emma sat at a table near the window, sunlight warming her back. Sarah slid into the seat across from her, dropping her lunch tray with a clatter. "Did you hear?" Sarah grinned. Jake's plea deal got him sent to some fancy reform school upstate. Rumor is they make them do actual manual labor. Emma snorted. "Tragic." A freshman walked by, hesitated, then dropped a folded note on the table before scurrying away. Emma unfolded it. "Thanks. M***." She looked up to see Melissa Cho, a quiet sophomore who'd been Jake's target before Emma arrived, disappearing into the crowd. Sarah peeked at the note. "You're like the patron saint of bullied kids now." Emma crumpled the note with a smile. "Someone's got to do it." The bell rang. Students gathered their books, heading off to class. Emma lingered a moment, watching the sunlight stream through the windows. No more shadows. No more running. Just life. She grabbed her backpack and followed the crowd into the hall.